Hello, friends. Welcome once again to an exciting episode of This Week in iPad, episode 17.
Getting up there.
Hard to believe it's been 17 amazing weeks, and yet here we are. Big show, tons. I was saying to Jacob before the show, we've got so much lined up for today. I hope we get to it all. We've got, we're going to do a game review. We're going to both review Flipboard, which the hot app of the moment everyone's sort of talking about. I wanted to review it last week, but I hadn't been invited in yet, but now that I have been, we can actually talk about it. We've got John D. Roberts, the CTO and co-founder of ComiXology.com. They've created, and in addition to their own app, they've created the Marvel and the DC comic reading app. So if you've been reading comics on your iPad, you've probably been interacting with their technology. I've been really enjoying it. It's awesome. So we're really excited to have him. And then we're going to do cocktail and bartending apps as our Planet of the App segment. It's an overstuffed show. I'm going to cut out any more introduction. I do, before we get started, want to thank NewTek for the use of their TriCaster. I know we've been a little remiss in mentioning this for a few weeks now, but we couldn't do any of these shows. The entire This Week in Network, and I watch and produce and take part in a lot of these shows, we could make none of them. This whole network wouldn't be possible without the TriCaster. For people who don't know, it's basically a studio in a box. I mean, it's everything you need to produce live streaming web shows in one little piece of hardware. It's convenient. You could take it with you. We've done shows on the road and all over the country with this thing, and it's really plug and play. I mean, we've got 6 different cameras here. We've got inserts. We can play videos. We do graphics and titles. We do green screen. I mean, you can see This Week in YouTube. We've got all kinds of effects. All of it made possible by our friends at NewTek and the TriCaster. We couldn't do it without them, and so I do want to thank them here at the top of the show while I remember. I know we're going to jump into a game review with you first thing, so let's just do that here at the top.
Sure. I'm supposed to be scared of
You were supposed to react to the explosion,
I failed terribly. I was not...
Oh, it is an explosion!
Not much of a beam. So the game I'm going to be reviewing...
You'll get it next time.
...is one of my favorite games for the iPhone, which last week got ported to the iPad. It's called 100 Rogues. I'll continue going, let it boot up, a game I started. It's a roguelike. If you're not familiar what a roguelike is, it's like an RPG. You have a little character, move them around. You kill things, you get items, you have spells, you have stats, just like an RPG, but unlike what most people are used to in RPG, where you're really concerned about your character leveling up and then you die, you can restart. This is much more about player development in that when you die, your character dies. It's like Pac-Man, you're dead, and you have to start over.
Right.
So it's much more about the points you accumulate over the span until you die, more so than getting to the end of the level and leveling your character up. Longest I've lasted is about level 7, which took me about an hour, and then I died. The most that was a spell I have in which God helps me out, gave me a little bit of help. He'll also smite my enemies at a random interval. Right now there are 2 classes, this little holy guy and who's called the Crusader, and then a sorceress, and it's just a mind-boggling addicting. If you're at all into RPGs at all, I think you would really enjoy it. Some players that I've read the reviews get frustrated that when you die, you lose your character and you sort of lose the customization, but it really works like sort of an arcade game. Trying to get my hand out of there, but it does require sort of a lot of
well, that's okay. We get an idea for like what it's like to actually play. One thing with games like this that I found on the iPad is sometimes you're not having a keypad, not having a joystick or anything. It feels frustrating. It feels like you're limited in what you can actually do. I know there's a lot of first-person shooter type games they've designed that look great and are really robust, but just when you're actually playing them, you got to have 2 fingers on there at one time. Do you feel that with this game, or is it enough of an arcade-style game that you don't feel that so much?
I think one thing they really took in consideration with that is that it's turn-based. When you first load it up, you're sort of holding your guy down, expecting it not to be turn-based, where you're running really fast. But as you can see, I'm not pressing anything, and the bandit isn't coming out to get me.
So he's waiting for you to go.
Ready to go. And if I actually want him to come to me so I can attack him, because he only has 1 move, so I hit skip. Yeah. And then smack him with my sword. So that way, there's no pressure on it. It's not like some games where, like a shooter, where you have to be reacting quickly. You have to have good hand-eye coordination skills.
What was it? Like Secret of Mana was like that. Remember where it was like you attack and then they attack and then you attack.
I mean, a lot of Final Fantasies are similar to that, where it's turn-based. Yeah. But all of this This has, unlike Final Fantasy, where you enter a world, and you enter the fight, and you leave the fight. This is sort of interactive, more like a hack and slash sort of Diablo style.
Sure.
But it's still turn-based, so there's the pressure's sort of off. A ton of fun. Mine extremely addicting. Once you die and you have a high enough score, it gets uploaded to the leaderboard, so you're always trying to compete. The final boss, which I have not seen yet, is Satan. You're trying to beat Satan.
Really?
It's got a very, like Blizzard.
So it's based on a true story.
Yes, absolutely. But it seems a little bit inspired by Blizzard games where it has that sort of tongue-in-cheek. It doesn't quite take itself seriously, but it doesn't sacrifice the gameplay. So extremely recommended either on the iPhone or the iPad. Would not recommend it on iPhone 3G, which I played it before. Mind-bogglingly slow.
Yeah.
But on the iPad, a lot of fun. Definitely worth getting. It's
How much is it?
$4.99.
Ah, it's not a bad deal. So there you go. There you have it. 100 Rogues was the name of that game.
100 Rogues, the number 100 Rogues.
Recommended by Jacob Birch. Before we go on, let's talk really briefly about one of my favorite sponsors that we've had here on the show, Gazelle. Gazelle.com. I've got it pulled up here on my iPad. I think this is a first for the show. Usually I pull it up on the laptop, but I'm going to show it looks great on the iPad too. Here I've looked up what to do, if I wanted to sell my Xbox 360 arcade. Basically, Gazelle is you can sell any of your old used electronics. I know people who watch the show, probably largely gadget-oriented people. I mean, if you're into the iPad already, you probably got the past 6 iterations of the iPad sitting around somewhere. You got an iPhone, you got some video game systems, some other phones, some other gadgets, a beeper or pager, perhaps. So you're a gadgety person, even back stretching all the way back to the 80s.
Can I sell a beeper on this?
We'll have to look that up.
I will look that up. Actually tried.
I will look that up before the next show, and we will tell you if you could actually sell a pager on Gazelle. I'm not sure, but any more contemporary used electronics, there's still a market for. Absolutely. Although you'd be surprised, even a first-generation iPhone you could still sell. So here, the Xbox. Obviously, there's new Xbox 360s. They're sleeker, they've got Wi-Fi built in. So if I wanted to get rid of my old one, you come here, you type it into Gazelle. Here is the actual Xbox 360 arcade. It powers on successfully. It's in perfect condition. I have all the original parts. I just want to see what they're going to offer me here on Gazelle. I click calculate. It's calculating. There we go. Oh no, it's not working on my iPad. Oh. That's what I get for trying to get fancy. Oh, I didn't enter them in my overall condition. That's why. That is totally my fault. That is not Gazelle's fault. $53. So there you go. $53, and you can even come down here. It looks like their graph is not actually working on the. They'll actually show you where how it compares to what they would have paid, what they'll pay next time.
Flash, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, right, you could actually get an idea of where it falls in sort of how much they would have paid you before and how much they will not be paying you in the future in case you want to know when to act. Like, should I hang on to this? Maybe I'll get just as much in a couple weeks or a couple months, or should I, get rid of it now because the price is about to drop off? They even help you with that. Free shipping. They'll even send you a box if it's an item that they like, and there's no risk at all because if they get it and they decide, you know what, it's not in as good condition, they don't want it as much as they thought, they'll let you know, and if you decide you don't want the new price they're offering, they'll just send it back to you for free. So it's risk-free. And it's so much better to do this than just have it sit around in a closet. You get money, and it's going to somebody else who loves it and who will get a lot of use out of it. They call it re-commerce. So Gazelle.com, everybody check it out, and thank @Gazelle_com on Twitter if you like the show. If you want to help us out, we always really appreciate people letting the sponsors know they're watching, they're hearing about us, they're hearing about them on the show, and they're enjoying the show. So thanks to Gazelle, and thanks to everybody for thanking them on Twitter. Let's move right along and do some news. I gotta just download them here. I should be more like, if I was really hosty, I would download the news onto my iPad while I'm doing the Gazelle ad, and then boom, it would be ready to go right here.
We're a couple of months away from OS 4, where multitasking might
There
help
you go,
out.
right. Multitasking would definitely be helpful in that case. Okay, so here we go, ready to do the news. The first thing we got to talk about, and John, I know John from ComiXology, you've joined us. Welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is an awesome backdrop behind you. He's in the model action figure room.
It's in your dream world.
That is, I love toys. That would be so cool. So anyway,
Just for you.
Thanks. If you want to comment on any of the stories, feel free, jump in, cut us off. We love to have your expert opinion. You're probably more knowledgeable about a lot of this stuff than Jacob and myself, or as knowledgeable.
Yeah, like you said, probably. He definitely is.
He's, knowledgeable guy, working on the iPad all the time. So the first thing I want to talk about is this iPad lawsuit. You guys have probably heard about this. A couple disgruntled customers, Jacob Baltazar, Claudia Keller, and John Browning, have filed a class action lawsuit against Apple on behalf of iPad owners everywhere, on behalf of you and me.
That's exciting.
Claiming that the device overheats and shuts itself down in what they're calling common weather conditions. They allege that because the iPad ceases to function if used during hot weather or in direct sunlight, it therefore doesn't live up to Apple's advertising claim that reading something on the iPad is just like reading a book. They're asking a federal court to redress and end this pattern of unlawful conduct. So it is true. Apple does say the iPad, just like the iPod Touch and the iPhone, it works ideally between 32 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. That's from Apple. So obviously, if you're operating it in weather way hotter than 95 degrees, which is conceivable if you were in the Nevada desert in July, it might get hotter than that.
You had to read a book.
It could theoretically overheat, and you would get one of those messages that says, you know, it would basically forcibly shut down and tell you with a little message like you got to wait for it to cool and then reload it and try to use it again. And also, obviously, there are glare issues in direct sunlight, so it's not necessarily that easy to read a book if the sun is shining right down on your iPad. Having said that, it seems a bit of a frivolous lawsuit to me. Do you think that they're actually violating any sort of truth in advertising claim by saying reading a book on the iPad is like reading a book in reality because the iPad can theoretically, like most consumer electronics, can theoretically overheat?
No. It's silly. It's almost I have almost nothing to say. It's silly. I mean, one, it's using like, so you could say it's a simile, so it will get thrown off because of that. But no, it screams of what it is, which is just money grabbing people. Yeah. Seeing if they could get any sort of truth in advertising. It's the legal culture we live in. Yeah.
Have you ever? Because we live in California. It gets hot. I've used my iPad out of doors often. I've never had it actually overheat. In fact, I've played games on it for a couple hours, and it stays cool where it doesn't even feel hot to the touch.
Well, I mean, this is more of the shutting down as opposed to necessarily overheating where it gets hot in your hand.
No, but I'm saying that like it theoretically wouldn't be overheating if it's not even feeling hot.
Right, but it'll even like I think my phone might have my old 3G might have shut off once when I was in Chicago and it was really cold out, but barely, and I turned it back on once I got inside, and it was fine. Yeah. So
I'd love to hear from viewers. If any viewers out there watching this live or on iTunes, if any of you actually had your iPad shut down because it was too hot, let us hear from you. You can find us at TWI iPad, or I'm at LONS Lons on Twitter. Let us know. I'd love to hear a story about that actually happening, because I don't think I've ever seen that happen where it actually shuts down. Which you would think you would have to prove that it can happen. Oh, Dana's saying hers is shut down randomly. Was that because it was too hot, though, or was that just because it just, had a technical glitch? Because I've never really experienced this. I feel like I use the heck out of my iPad.
It never happened to me.
All right. Yeah, too much we rule. Right, okay, so that I can see happening. I've had that problem too.
My tailor shop slums have shut off my iPad on numerous occasions.
Yes, well, you have
Can I sue? Can I sue because of that?
Can you sue because you built too many tailor shops?
I think they said they promised a delightful time. This is not a delightful time.
A delightful, grand old time.
I was promised a magical device by one Steve Jobs.
Yeah, it's true. It has not actually violated the laws of physics yet, so I don't know if it lives up to its magical device claim.
So I'm going to sue.
Yeah.
I see no wizardry here.
There are dragons on it if you play We Rule. You can get a dragon and
Not
a
enough magic.
That's magical.
Steve
All right.
Jobs.
So we both agree. Frivolous lawsuit, kind of a silly thing.
Jobs, I'm taking him to court.
Let's move on.
Thank you. Yay.
Yes, well done. Speaking of silliness, I had to talk about this news story. My Type is this, it's a website, it's a service. They offer a variety of surveys that allow you to take, you can discover your personality type. You take a survey on there and it tells you what kind of personality you have. And you can use Facebook Connect. So you go on, you take a quiz, it tells you like, you're a great person, and then you share it with your friends on Facebook and get them to take it. And it's one of those kind of things. So on the site's blog, they published the results of a study they're saying they did, 20,000 users of their service, and they asked them about iPads. And these are the conclusions that they found. iPad owners are part of a selfish elite. And here are some of the adjectives they use to describe us. Power hungry, unkind, wealthy, sophisticated. Sophisticated is not bad. And disproportionately interested in business and finance. And those who are most critical of the iPad, they call them independent geeks. And they're all sorts of lovely, nice things that they say about them. iPad critics tend to be independent geeks, self-directed young people who look down on conformity and are interested in video games, computers, electronics, science, and the internet. These results suggest that the iPad is seen more as a power tool for elites than is the newest gadget for technology geeks. 54% of those who took the survey said they expressed no interest in ever buying an iPad, interestingly. And 11% said they found the iPad to be silly. And the final part I'll get into, they identified the primary self-described sin of iPad owners as gluttony. So obviously this is not a scientific survey. They just did an internet survey, 20,000 people. There's a lot of selection bias in who's using my type, I'm sure. But what do you think of this? Is it just? It seems like, you know, one, they know that people are going to talk about it like we're talking about it. They know that it's like the kind of hot device, and if you pick on people who own iPads. But is there any truth to this at all? I mean, do you think you can make generalizations about people who own the iPad based on their iPads?
I think potentially people who bought it within the first 3 or 4 months, like we're in right now. But I think eventually it's a device where once you use it, you get it, and it sort of awashes. But people who are deciding to take quizzes online, so selection bias, like you said,
right.
But then combined with feel like they need to get a hot new device and can devote $500 to that, might gravitate towards some of these things, but interested in business and finance. How is your portfolio doing, Mr. Harris?
Quite nicely. You know, stocks.
You know, my wife loves it, mainly because she can hold our baby and use it at the same time. And she resisted at first. I got it for her, and she refused to use it. Now she uses it every day.
She sounds mad with power.
Yes, she does, actually. Yeah. She rules with an iron fist.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a great point, and that's something I found a lot, is that it's one of those things where people hear about it and they're like, oh, that's just a silly thing, I don't need that. And then you use it for a little while and you're like, oh, this actually has a lot of great things I wouldn't have thought of that are actually really helpful. And one great example is today we're going to talk about cocktail apps, which is something you wouldn't necessarily think of with an iPad, but could actually be very useful. I mean, you're in the kitchen, you're looking around at what you have. I'm looking at an app that actually lets you just combine different alcohols that you have and tells you what cocktails you can make. I mean, that is useful. I can get something about that every day, sometimes 2-3 times a day. If I'm feeling saucy.
You can make alcohol poisoning. That'd be a delicious cocktail.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, it seems so, and it's mean of this site to come out and say, make these kind of generalizations based on owning an iPad. Are iPad users going to become like a minority, like a minority group that we have to watch out for? Like people are going to start stereotyping us?
I hope not. How do they, I wonder how the quiz determines someone is unkind. Would you?
It asks you,
when
like,
you see a puppy in the street, do you A, kick it?
Kick it, yeah.
You're going to see protests with people with signs on their iPads. They're not going to use cardboard. They're going to use their iPads with signs on it.
Yeah. Right. No justice, no peace, or something.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Anyway, I don't think, the one thing I think you could say is you could theoretically say, I bet iPad owners are disproportionately well off just because of the price point. I mean, it's a pricey thing. I'm sure some people who are living paycheck to paycheck, got iPads, but I would bet, there's probably a big chunk of iPad owners who are a little bit better off.
And that's
not me, but
and maybe like power hungry seems like just a negatively charged word.
Well, and honestly, the people I know who are really like, I have to be in control and I have to be in charge of everything. They're the ones that hate Apple because they feel like they're not in enough control or whatever.
And that's why I'm wondering if they're taking, a person generally has an idea towards leadership or to individualism, and they're saying, oh, power hungry. Yeah, so it seems like they're charging the words here in order to get a little bit of ire out of
Yes,
people
I think.
who host
Well, I think they
iPad
know
shows.
that, right? People who host iPad shows or write columns or blogs about iPads are going to be like, "This is an outrage," and talk about them. And now everybody's heard about MyType, which they'll go check out online and take one of their silly quizzes and find out which Twilight character they are. So, let's move on. Let's not give them any more free publicity. The last thing I want to talk about is this Time Magazine versus Apple conflict that's sort of building. Time Magazine's they'd been planning a Sports Illustrated iPad app, and the idea was that it would sell digital copies of their magazine directly to consumers through the App Store. This plan was rejected by Apple. They've rejected the app, and All-Time Warner now is able to do so far sell individual copies of Sports Illustrated just through the iTunes Store. So they can't have their own app where they sell subscriptions. Time executives are insisting that they want to be able to sell subscriptions directly because they want control of their own revenue stream and because they want all the customer data that they get from selling subscriptions. They don't necessarily want Apple to have that. They want to have they want to have their own data. They want to have their own customers, and they want to have a direct connection to their customers. Time says that Apple was cooperating them through the app development process, and that now they can't get a clear answer out of them about exactly why it was rejected, and sort of the lines of communication seem to have broken down. Apple does already allow a few publishers and app makers, like Amazon has that app. You can directly do commerce with Amazon through their app.
Wall Street Journal.
And Wall Street Journal as well, so they can bill customers directly through apps. And Time also has competitors who are moving forward with pseudo-subscription-based app. Like Hearst is hoping to do one for Esquire and the Oprah magazine, but that's actually going to be a bundle. So they'll package a bunch of issues and just sell those issues. It's not an ongoing subscription. So that seems to be kind of the sticking point for Apple so far. So I guess there'll be a couple different theories as to why Apple is holding this up or doesn't want to go forward with this. Is it, they want to collect the user data themselves, they don't want to share, maybe that they're actually concerned about giving people who make apps too much access to customer information, they don't want to necessarily open that up. That would be the nicest view, like they want to protect their customers' information. Or even that Steve Jobs is hoping this is like his next step to control the magazine subscription industry by not letting anybody else sort of free access to it. So what do you think? And John, I'd especially like to hear your sort of thoughts on this.
I think the oft referred to John Gruber of Daring Fireball sort of laid out that his theory is that with the Wall Street Journal and Amazon, those subscription services you manage online, and then you can put your account on the app, and then it handles it that way.
Right.
And that maybe the Sports Illustrated app was trying to do too much of the account sign up and subscription process in the app itself. That said, I think the most of the fault does lie with Apple here, not so much in rejecting it per se, but and not spelling it out. Really much of anything. They need to be very concise, say this is a rule. If you obey this, it works. If not, it doesn't work, and we will reject it. And to the date, they're not very keen on acting like that. And so it's on them, and stories like this will continue to creep up and take small dings out of the Apple's PR image until they, just clear it up.
Yeah. So, John, you guys obviously, ComiXology is a comic book sort of store in the iPad. Have you guys have you ran into this problem of trying to sell people, like, if I wanted to subscribe to Ultimate Spider-Man and then I can, or have you been really sort of content to stick with the issue per issue system that you've set up so far?
Well, the issue per issue method has been working out for us pretty well. The way we get around subscriptions is that we offer, in certain cases, and this is on a per publisher basis, we offer digital trade paperbacks where we, give you 6 or 7 books for a smaller price point. The App Store or Apple isn't really set up to do subscriptions, so it's kind of hard. They don't allow you to do reoccurring billing. So, you could charge them once, but then, it would be like a manual process to constantly do it. So it's not really at a point right now where we could, use it.
Is that something you're looking towards for the future, though, where I'd be able to basically say, I like Jonah Hex, and then each week the new one comes in and I just sort of get it automatically to my iPad?
Well, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that we, listen to our users and take what they have to say. Hey, there we are.
There you are.
We take our users' comments very seriously, and we try to build a better experience for them. So if there is a demand for a subscription service, then that is something that we will definitely investigate. But we don't have any plans at the moment.
Cool. So I want to keep talking to John, but before I do, I want to talk a little bit about Walala Inc. and their amazing PrintMagic HD app. We've talked about this a few times on the show, and I think we have a little video that we could show you that really expresses my feelings, my fond, warm feelings towards the PrintMagic HD app. Let's take a look at that now.
Ever since Walala introduced its PrintMagic app for iPhone and iPad, no one needs my fantastical enchantments anymore. You can copy and paste any text or images into the app, and it prints them on HP, Epson, or most other Wi-Fi connected printers. You can even download the print test for PrintMagic and try it out before you buy it. Print out a map with directions, a copy of an important email, or any of your favorite photos directly from your iPad, iPhone, or iPod Touch. It's so easy, it's just like magic, only without the magician. PrintMagic. Easily print images, text, and web pages from your iPad. No wizards required.
Poor Merlon. I also noticed in that last shot, you can totally see that Merlon is wearing Adidas sneakers, which seems out of step for a wizard. But anyway, thanks to Walala. I think this is our last week of Walala sponsoring the show and PrintMagic. We've loved...
And of that commercial.
And of that commercial, which really makes me sad. You can find it on YouTube. Just look up PrintMagic HD. But it's a great app. You could print anything, especially pictures look amazing, and print anything from any printer. Thanks to @Walala_Inc. on Twitter, if you feel like supporting the show, and we really appreciate it. Now let's talk to John. John D. Roberts from ComiXology, kind enough to join us and wait through a half hour of nonsense before we actually get to talk to him. So the first thing that really interested me looking through a lot of ComiXology's website and the app and checking it out is a big part of your philosophy as a company seems to be based around, keeping actual comic book stores as part of the sort of system. There's a lot of ways to interact with your local store and tag things that you're interested in, checking out locally. Do you see digital and physical comics as complementary?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've had retailers tell us that as a result of the retail locator in all of our major apps, that they've seen an increase in traffic, people coming into the store, some for the first time because of the retail locator in our app. So we're actually introducing new people to comics and people to comic book stores that wouldn't normally go into one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. Is there a reason you feel like the digital experience, do you think the digital experience is ever going to really replace the old-fashioned brick-and-mortar comic book store? Or do you think we're always going to be in this sort of situation where collectors and people will want to go actually buy physical copies and other people will want to sort of test things out and read them on their iPads?
Well, I'm kind of in in the mix of both. I love comic book stores. I love going in. I love browsing old comics. I like seeing the toys. I like talking to the owners, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that I don't want to own physically. So, the digital kind of gives you a way it introduces you to things that you wouldn't normally check out. And then if you like it and you want to actually own it, then you can go to a comic store, buy the trade, buy the individual issues, put them on your shelf, whatever you want to do. So I think that there's a hybrid going on, and it's kind of nice to be in a leadership position to kind of help, figure that out.
Yeah. So can you tell us? I'm about to pull up I'll pull up one in another app. I'm about to pull up an actual comic book here that uses what you guys call guided view technology. Can you walk us through how this came about? how did it get started, this idea that, you know, there's going to be a new system for reading comics on your iPad? It's not just going to be like we read traditional books where it's, you know, next page, next page, next page. For people who are not familiar, also, like, it's and you'll do a better description job than I do, but it's really like a cinematic way of taking people through comics panel by panel for maximum kind of impact.
Well, I mean, it pretty much came about because of the iPhone. You know, the iPhone has a very tiny screen. You can't, you know, if you were to present somebody with a full picture of the, you know, the full page, there'd be a lot of pinching and zooming. You know, my fingers are cramping up just thinking about it. So we needed a way. You know, we had two options. We could either, you know, keep the page as is and then just kind of mask it and move it around in a way to, you know, tell the story, or we could chop up the page into individual images. And we thought that, you know, chopping up the page wasn't the best way to go, but instead we would keep the page intact. So, you know, there's a setting that allows you to show the full page on start or on end. So you still have that full page. You still have that, like, you know, entire comic book panel. You can explore it if you want, but if you want to read it on a very tiny screen like the iPhone, you know, we present it in a way that's, you know, as you said, very cinematic. You know, we kind of guide you through it. And we found that a lot of people that aren't used to comic books love the guided view and miss it. Like some people weren't able to find it on the iPad, and we had frantic emails from them. It's like, why did you remove this? And it's like, no, it's there. It's there, you know. I explained how to get there, and then they were happy again.
Yeah, I mean, I've been reading comics for kind of a while, and I do think one of the things that's sort of a barrier for people who are just starting is where to look. I mean, there's so much going on a typical comic book page, and this really sort of just steps in and solves that issue for you. It tells you, you know, look here, this is the significant thing to notice, you know, in sort of combining the art and the text for beginners. So that is kind of an interesting thing. Was there ever a concern that, you know, you were sort of over editorializing in a way? I mean, that you guys were kind of stepping in and telling people where they're supposed to look on the page, whereas a lot of comic book authors and artists might have thought, well, that's up to the viewer. Or was that not really a concern?
It really hasn't been a concern. We get a lot of compliments for the guided view. You know, it actually is one of the things that gets talked about the most in reviews or people talking about our app. And we've actually heard back from some of the creators that have told us that we've done a really good job, you know, presenting their story in a way, you know, so we haven't had many complaints, or any complaints actually, as to, you know, our pacing. You know, we do try our best to make the storytelling as, you know, good as possible. You know, we actually have people who sit there and do that, and we, you know, scrutinize these things because we want to present you with the best user experience possible.
So can you talk us through a little bit of the process of taking a physical comic book and then translating it into like this sort of iPad experience? Like, you know, how long does it take, and how many people are sort of involved in the process?
Well, you know, I mean, I think a comic book, you know, from start to finish may take like 20 to 30 minutes. You know, and then we have to proof it and make sure everything is reading correctly. There aren't any, you know, cock-ups. You know, and then we have our supervisor goes over it and makes sure that everything's okay, and then we test it on the iPhone. You know, so there's a lot of like Q&A involved to make sure that we're presenting you with, you know, the best possible experience. But you know, it's not. I mean, it takes some time. You know, we have human beings handling these things, so but it's not a bad process.
So you've worked on, I'm going to show, I was just showing the Marvel app, I'm going to show the DC app now. You guys actually worked on both the Marvel and the DC apps. Was the process identical, and did each of these companies come to you and say they wanted slightly different things, or is this really like a template that you sort of applied to both companies? Because I know that the companies themselves, there's a little rivalry going there. So was it really just like easy to sort of move from one into the other?
Yeah, well, I mean, part of our system is that we create a, you know, you know, especially with the DC app and the Comics app and the Boom Studio app, you know, your purchases are able to, you know, they transfer between the device, between the apps and between devices. So, all of this allowed us, having this like unified, experience has allowed us to, present the same, the user knows what to expect when they open an app that's been created by us. There's no mystery. It's like, everything is where it's supposed to be. And in the case of the Boom and the DC and the Comics app, you even have your same, the same comics. It's like if you buy in the DC app, you can read it in the Comics app, or you can read it online.
Yeah, so it's all like sort of interchangeable. Everything you're getting is kind of accessible from wherever you are, which is really nice. It's something we hear about a lot of different apps on the show, is that people hate sort of having their content locked up. It's kind of one of the main complaints I think we hear about Apple stuff in general, is like, oh, it's locked into my iPad, into my phone, into my iTunes. So that is kind of a nice thing to have all your comics that you're buying, easily accessible wherever you are. So how much of the focus of ComiXology at this point is on developing these kinds of apps for other companies, as opposed to sort of enhancing your own products and working on your own website and your own app?
That's a good question.
Thanks.
I mean, we as of late, as with our recent announcements, and we've got some more announcements coming up later in the next month. A lot of the focus has been on the the digital side of things, building the DC app, the Boom app, enhancing our app. And one of the nice things is that with these apps being built on the same technology, when we update one with a feature, all of the other ones can be updated. So where the development time is significantly less. And then the website, we're continuing to spend time on the website and trying to make that better. We've got the digital comics on the website now, comiXology.com, where you can read anything that you've purchased in the Boom, the Comics, or the DC app.
Cool. Can you tell us your favorite comic that you guys have worked on, and if it's DC or Marvel? I'm just trying to get, or Vertigo or something else. Who knows?
It's actually I would have to say that one of the most interesting comics that I've read recently is called Irredeemable, and it's by Boom Studios. Mm-hmm. I've been really enjoying that. I've read a lot of the other stuff. I love Ex Machina, Invincible, The Walking Dead. Actually, I didn't start reading until it was on in our app, and I'm obsessed. I just absolutely love The Walking Dead.
It's funny you should say that's when Jacob and I are both working our way through The Walking Dead. Well, you're done.
I'm close.
Don't
to
spoil
done.
it.
Yeah.
No spoilers.
I'm still beginning.
You're still on book one.
I'm on book one, but we both of us are. It's amazing so far. I'm really enjoying it.
You need to get through before the AMC series starts.
I know they're adapting that one for TV. Yeah, that is. I'm trying to find it actually in here right now. I maybe should focus on hosting.
I was about to say, this is going to start on this week. This is going to become This Week in Comics.
We've already sort of morphed the show halfway into This Week in Comics. So, any plans for the ComiXology? What's next for the ComiXology iPad app itself, and are there ever going to be social or community aspects to it? Because I feel like that's one thing that you guys could really exploit, is there's so many people who are into comics and are using these apps already to read. Is there ever going to be that kind of an angle on it? And if so, what can we sort of expect?
Well, the website, I mean, it's kind of hidden, but we do have, profiles and, user groups and stuff on the website. Mm-hmm. We've been focusing on what our users have been asking for, and primarily they've been asking for a better user experience, more content. So we've been spending a lot of time, doing things like getting DC on, getting Dark Horse on, but social, all of these like community, functions, they're very important, and these are things that we're exploring, and when the demand gets there, we will have, we want to do it right. As I'm sure you're aware, social done bad is, can be really bad.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that when we do social, we hit the ground running.
Definitely. And I mean, there are already a lot of those aspects on ComiXology.com, the web interface.
Exactly.
It's really just more like, porting some of that stuff over, which seems to be a sticking point for a lot of companies to bring like the social element over into their iPad app. We're going to talk about Flipboard in a second, which is another step in sort of trying to do that, I think. So one more question, unless you want to jump in here, Jacob.
I had two. You stole both.
Oh,
so
okay.
go
Well,
for it.
so my last one would be, where are digital comics going from here? You think we're going to get, is it going to start to be original comics written just for the iPad or for devices like this? Is there going to be another level, 3D or interactivity? Or have we seen like this is the future of the comic and we're enjoying it now? Where do you see it going?
I mean, one of the things that we did as part of the DC deal was that Zuda Comics, are you familiar with the Zuda Comics? You can only get Zuda Comics through our app or through our website. So I think what we're going to start seeing is more and more original comics written specifically for the device. And you're going to see comics as a whole start to evolve with the device in mind. You're going to see like the lettering starting to get bigger, or maybe the storytelling is. Did you guys read Box 13, our original comic that we with Steve Gallagher and David Gallagher and Steve Ellis? We commissioned this original comic, and it was originally presented straight on the iPhone, and then we went and we published it. So I think you're going to there it is. So
Box 13, number 1. A reimagining of the popular radio serial. I have not, as you can see, I have not. I'm going to download it right now, so I will check it out. But I have not read it yet.
I have not either.
That story was written specifically with the iPhone in mind. So the pacing and the panels and everything is that it's built for the iPhone, and then we printed it as a trade paperback from Red 5. So I think you're going to start to see more of that. You're going to see more people writing stories, drawing stories directly for the iPad.
Yeah, and actually, you can see this was a really good sort of exemplar of how fast it works, which is, we got pretty good Wi-Fi here, but, you see something you like, you hit the button, and it's right there in the palm of your hands. I mean, so much different from when I was first reading comic books, and it was like, oh, I'd very much like to read that. Mom, can you drive me to the comic book store? Then you go there, and they don't have they have number 2, but they don't have number 1, so I have to wait or I have to order it. I mean, it's really, it's an amazing already leap forward where we are.
Well, that was actually one of the things that we had some retailers point out. They said that if someone, like in your case, they go to the store to buy issue number 1 and you only have issue number 2, well, you can get issue number 1 on the iPad, and then you can buy the rest of the series.
Yeah. Which is, you could see actually buy full series as an option there whenever you're buying something on there. Super convenient, really nice, great functionality. Thank you so much, John, for joining us. We loved having you. ComiXology.com. You can check out their comics app for the iPad, and if you already have the DC and Marvel app, I know most people got those right away when they came out who care about comics at all. A big thanks to ComiXology for helping out with that. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. Loved having you.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
Sure thing. So, Flipboard. We got to talk about Flipboard.
It's not This Week in Comics anymore?
It's not.
I'm excited. I got really
And This Week in Comics.
We
will. To speak frankly as creative director of This Weekend and a comic book nerd, we will have to do This Week in Comics at some point. I love comics. I could talk about comics for hours a day. We'll definitely have to do a all comics show at some point. But in the meantime, I try to work a little comics love into the iPad show. But for now, This Week in Comics.
Social news reading.
This Week in Comics.
Social news reading.
Start This Week in Social News Reading with Flipboard. Let's take a look. Flipboard, of course, massively hyped over the last couple weeks. So hyped, in fact, that they ran out of server space. They had to basically make us all wait to get in. But now I have gotten in, so we can give you guys all a quick look. On first glance, it's obvious to me why this was so hyped from the get-go. Visually, it's pretty stunning. It really does capture the look and feel of a magazine. And when you first see it, you're like, it has that aha moment that the best iPad apps have, which is, you are seeing something and it looks like it's just a magazine format. It looks like a news aggregator, and then you realize, oh my God, this is actually importing my personal Facebook and Twitter feeds. My friends have programmed this for me without even realizing that they're doing it. So I'll jump in. I'll show you, like, this is basically what's going on my Twitter feed. The Fine Brothers have posted a video, which I could click here and play. Generic Mammal, a viewer of our This Week in Movie show, has responded to me about, I posted the Woody Allen Tall Dark Stranger trailer earlier, and he's actually responded to me. And you can keep flipping through, and you can see, images, how to stay goth past 50, and other articles. Now, of course, they can't share with you the entire article. You can't really read it like a magazine. So you hit here, and you see that you get a Read on Web button, and then it takes you in a browser to the actual article. That's obviously a copyright issue. I know Jason Calacanis on This Week in Startups had some pretty strong words about this app, and he feels that this is a violation of the spirit of copyright law, that they're trying to basically get you to download and look at articles through them and then sell their app or sell themselves based on other people's content. I don't know. I mean, I feel like for the most part, you do have to end up clicking through to actually read most of the content. It's not a complete experience here. It's more like a preview. Having said all of that, there are some definite downsides once you spend a few minutes in. And I don't know, I'm sure, Jacob, you'll have your own thoughts on this, but especially here, you can look at the right side of my screen here. These are tweets, and a lot of them are @responses, and it tries its best to make them somewhat sensible so that they're in an order where you can follow a conversation, but they're not doing a great job. They're doing an okay job, and I'm sure they'll get better. A lot of the time you'll see a random tweet, and it is a response to somebody, or it's part of an overall conversation, and it just seems out of context, and you're not quite sure why it's been brought up, which brings me to my other main issue, which is I'd love to know more information generally about how they're deciding what goes where and how they're deciding preference. Because it's obvious that a lot of this is designed just based on what's recent, but it also seems like they're editorializing in some way. They're favoring certain kinds of content over other kinds of content. Obviously, images get favored, but I'd like to know more about what goes into their formula, what goes into their algorithm, because right now it seems a little random to me.
That was my one complaint. It would be interesting. I don't want to get in a fight with Jason by any means, but at the same time,
no, please do.
At the same time, it's sort of interesting that how could it, if I click a tweet from, a link that someone tweeted to my friends and I'm viewing it, how is that not just like a web browser? I mean, I guess it might depend on how much they decide to try and monetize this at any point.
Right.
But it's really jarring to get in the middle of an article and then you hit read more, and it loads it fairly eloquently well once you load it up in the browser. But
this is, go back. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You're muttering off. But it's jarring. It's like it's clearly beautiful. It's got a really clever UI. It's pinching things do what you think it would do. Flipping does what you think it would do. Random is exactly what I thought. Random tweets. So why is this? It's so funny seeing a random tweet in this really nice printed font where you're like, oh man, this looks really interesting because it's got a neat font, and then it's a boring tweet about someone adding another friend of mine that is of no concern to me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like obviously these things will improve over time. They'll thread the needle a bit better and figure out what people want to see and what people click on. And it would obviously be great if one day it can actually get smarter based on what I click on and what I read, maybe favor some people's tweets and Facebook posts if I click on them a lot, or certain kinds of content from certain kinds of blogs. I mean, you have stuff like Pulse that is so personalized and customized and really gives you a very similar experience, but it's based on the feeds I choose to pull in. And right now, I mean, I think this is a really interesting companion and a really interesting alternate concept that rather than being based on the specific kinds of content you choose, it's based on the kinds of content, based on the people that you've chosen. So I've chosen to follow you, I'm interested in what you're reading, and I let you sort of make those decisions for me instead of an RSS feed. I think that's a really interesting concept. I feel like it's sort of half ready at this point. And so Pulse is overall a better reading experience for me than Flipboard. But I don't know necessarily if it'll always be that way. The thing that I made a like ooh sound while you were talking, which I apologize, is actually you can see right here, it brought up This Week in Venture Capital with Mark Suster on my front page of my Flipboard, which is very clever of them. Somebody in my circle tweeted it, and they made it my homepage, which is a little frustrating actually, because I want to just be able to click and read and view it. but of course I cannot. I can go like here and share cover or retweet, but that's about it. And you know, it has those very basic kinds of features. So if I'm looking at Twitter and I like something, I can retweet it right from here. But that's basically it for now. I can sort of favorite it, I can retweet it, I can see if anybody has @replied it, and that's about it. And otherwise you can see not a very full feature, not a great experience. If I was using just a Twitter program, I would probably have a better, more full-featured Twitter experience than this, but it's not about that. It's about browsing. So from that level, I think it's pretty good. I think it's definitely going to grow with time. And exactly like Nunamaya is saying, it's a beautiful app. It's well designed. It looks great. They really have captured the magazine feeling. I would recommend people with iPads check it out, definitely.
It's worth checking out. My sort of qualm with it was I don't know when I would actually load it up. I don't know when that would be a great time to browse, where every other page is something I care about, but the rest is things. The thing I like about just looking at my Twitter feed and looking at who I'm following is that I can choose to ignore things easier because it's so small.
Can I throw out something a little crude?
Sure.
On the can. That's where this is designed for.
I'm going to go back to drawing.
Is that not right to say? That's where I think, honestly, that's the kind of reading this is, where it's that quick skimming. I'm not really focused on anything. If you wanted to dig a little deeper, you'd probably want Pulse, or you'd want your full-featured Twitter client or something like that.
Fair enough.
Thank you. That's what I thought. Okay, so having moved on with that, one more app I've got to talk about before we start to wrap things up. We have a whole other segment to go. We'll go quickly through the cocktail apps because we're almost out of time. But I have to talk about PressReader from Newspaper Direct. It's an amazing app. We actually talked about it on Startups. Jason didn't even know they were a sponsor. He just wanted to talk about it. And darn it, I want to talk about it too. So let's take a look. Here's my PressReader app. You could pull it up. You can read, I mean, they have 1,500 full content newspapers on this thing. In 90 countries, 47 languages, and every day these papers get updated. You can see I've subscribed to the LA Times. It is downloading today's LA Times right now to my iPad, and we can look up and see what a past issue looks like. There we go. So this is actually like the sports page of July 22nd's LA Times, and I can click right here and I can browse through to any section. The Nation, let's go look at that. It works both ways. I can look at it vertically or horizontally. It actually makes, if you browse in real close, you can see stuff like email addresses. It actually makes into a hyperlink. I can email Kathleen Hennessy right here from the app.
Which you will.
Which I will, because her views on Michelle Bachmann anger me. No, but you get even the ads. I mean, you get the entire paper. It's not like a segment. It's not like a preview. And most apps where you can read newspapers on your iPad, it's, you know, it's like the LA Times app or the New York Times app, and you get that one paper, and it's edited, it's truncated, it's like editor's picks, and you're just getting a selection. This is the full newspaper every day, and the price is actually really reasonable. It's 99 cents per title, so you could buy just one day's issue of the newspaper for $1. You know, just like you would at newsstands. You can pay $10 a month and you get 31 downloads, so you could get an entire newspaper for a month for $10, or for $30 a month you get everything. You get their entire library of newspapers, which is what I'm sort of showing off right here. I mean, you can take a look. Like, these are all the different countries. You can see they have 10 newspapers just from Denmark. They have 11 from France. They have 31 from Germany. They have 19 from Hungary. So if you want to read newspapers from all over the world, it's like right there at your fingertips. It's really, to me, it feels like it's like going to the library when you're a kid, and you've got that microfiche drawer, and you can look through, you know, anything that was published pretty much anywhere and pull it up instantly. It's like that level of power right on your iPad. You know, so it's totally amazing. And if you download the PressReader app, you get your first 7 newspapers free. So why not give it a try? PressReader is the app. We love PressReader. We love the app. Thanks to Newspaper Direct. Go and thank them on Twitter. They're at PressDisplay. And tell them that, you know, we sent you. If you're enjoying the show, help us out. We always appreciate it. And thanks to PressReader, an amazing app. It floored me when I tried it out. I mean, they sent it to Jacob and I to check out.
Yeah,
I was absolutely astounded by how well this works.
Selection will floor you. And the only thing I like that is the amount of English newspapers in that. It could be in Ireland, it could be in Mexico, but
Pakistan. I was reading the Pakistan Times, I think, and they had the English language version, so I could actually read.
Even if you're, you know, even if you're sort of intimidated, but oh, there's not that many newspapers I would care about that I couldn't get easily online. There really are a lot that I had no idea existed.
I mean, 1,500 newspapers
that offered and just speaking, I speak un poquito Spanish, but that's it. So even
Muy
just
poquito.
very, very,
Yeah.
very. I speak very whatever. Even if you're an English-only speaker, selection's awesome. Really great app.
Yeah. Wow. We are actually out of time. I feel like, should we save cocktail apps for next week?
Sure.
All right, so we'll save Planet of the Apps. We don't have time. I think we've run out of time. We're at a full hour here. Thanks again to John D. Roberts of ComiXology. Great interview, so compelling we went over time. We didn't have time to get to it. I think it was Flipboard. It was both John's fascination.
I think it was This Week in Comics.
And Flipboard, yeah, with a little This Week in Comics. So thanks to him, thanks to Gazelle.com, Walala's PrintMagic app, and the PressReader app. Go thank them on Twitter. I would always appreciate it. Stay tuned, because in a half hour, we have This Week in Video Games starting, and then right after that, we have This Week in Music starting. You don't want to miss that. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in to This Week in iPad.